As the lava sizzled on the fiery planet of Mustafar, a worker droid was disrupted from its tasks. A sudden thump gave it a great deal of added weight and knocked it off its set course. This disturbance was caused by two Jedi Knights, who were in the middle of the most intense life-or-death fights they would ever participate in. On a mobile platform stood Obi-Wan Kenobi, a wise Jedi Master trying to save his best friend from evil. And adjacent to him was Anakin Skywalker, a kind man turned weapon of Darth Sidious. As the Master and Apprentice rained blows down on each other, flawlessly blocking each other's attacks, they reached the point of exhaustion. They both paused the fight, regaining their breaths and taking a moment to rest. "I have failed you, Anakin," Obi-Wan would confess. It was then that Anakin revealed the true nature behind why he had done the things he had, slaughtering his brothers and sisters at the Jedi Temple and mercilessly killing the younglings. "From my point of view, the Jedi are evil." Obi-Wan's mind stopped. Anakin had been manipulated into following this belief. He wasn't fighting him because he's evil. He's just confused, misguided. Following the true path of the Jedi, Obi-Wan would attempt to reason with Anakin, instead of telling him that he is hopeless. "Anakin, Chancellor Palpatine is evil. He has twisted your mind until you have become the very thing you swore to destroy. You are my brother, Anakin. Padme needs our help, or her and your children will die." "You know? How?" "I've always known, Anakin. But for your sake, I kept it to myself. I know what she means to you. I admit I felt that way once before, too. We must go to her. Forget about Jedi and Sith. Your wife needs you." Anakin would switch off his saber, and alongside it, so too would his anger switch off, like a light bulb. In that very moment, Darth Vader had left, and Anakin Skywalker had returned, and he had finally realized what he had done. He disgraced the Order in the memory of his sweet mother. She didn't raise him to be this way. Anakin let out a deep sigh, feeling sick to his stomach. As he walked with Obi-Wan back to the landing platform, he fell to his knees, and his mind began to dart. It couldn't be. That woman, laying on the ground in front of them. It couldn't be her. It wasn't Padme. But it was. As his memory came flooding back, Anakin screamed and punched the ground, with tears rolling through his eyes. He understood now what he had been too brash to see. Palpatine had used him. Whether he cared about him or not, he had twisted him into a weapon against the Jedi. He made him so dependent on his rage and anger that he attacked his master, his brother, and choked his own wife. Annie could hardly hold in his disgust and self-hatred. As Obi-Wan helped him to his feet, they rushed over to Padme, brought her to the ship, and headed for Polis Massa, the nearest medical station. With her husband by her side, Padme was able to regain consciousness and give birth to their healthy children, Luke and Leia. Happy to see her true love safe and back from the dark place he once inhabited, Padme would live, and Yoda and Bail Organa would soon arrive at the station. Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Anakin sat together in a room, talking about young Skywalker's feelings. Among all the talk of Palpatine, the dark side, and the Jedi, there was one thing that was crystal clear. Anakin made a mistake. One that cost almost 10,000 people their lives. He wanted to leave the Order and Sidious and just live a peaceful life with Padme. But he knew that could simply not happen. Palpatine would come for him, and following that his children too. He would use Padme's life as a tool of manipulation, just as he already had. Anakin knew that the only true path to keep him and his family safe was with the Jedi. But he couldn't just go back to the old ways. The old system didn't work. That was clear to everyone now. Yoda and Obi-Wan could both see that despite their best efforts, it wasn't possible for Anakin to simply shut off his emotions, but it was a weakness Sidious took advantage of. And so they worked together, over a great period of time, to forge a new path, to refine the future of the Jedi, and how they lived their lives. Anakin would take his family with Yoda and Obi-Wan, where they would live quiet lives studying the Force. Luke and Leia would grow up to be incredibly powerful Jedi, and their father would master a middle ground between light and dark, a healthy mix of emotion and stoicism. Together they would become immensely strong, and after the death of Yoda, they would accompany Obi-Wan on a mission to wipe out Sidious. They would begin hunting down any survivors of Order 66 that they could. After finding key figures such as Ahsoka, Kanan, Cal Kestis, and so on, they would found a new Jedi Order. The Order would be formed at the same place they had hidden out, the ancient Jedi homeworld of Tython. As the Jedi would work together to refine their abilities, they would slowly seek out Force-sensitive children and begin to train them. It would be then that Anakin would make an announcement, in front of all of the members of his new rapidly expanding Jedi Order. He, alongside his 2 children and Obi-Wan Kenobi, were going to lure out Darth Sidious, the evil Emperor, and kill him. Everyone, from the newly appointed Jedi Masters to their young Padawans and younglings, started arguing and asking to come along. Ahsoka in particular felt hurt that she was excluded from the plan. Anakin embraced her and told her in a gentle voice, "I need you here, Snips. You're the strongest and wisest after me and Obi-Wan. We need you to stay here in case the worst happens. And I know it won't, but just, if it does, you have to be here to finish what we start." After saying their goodbyes, the crew departed and headed to make their presence known. After causing a ruckus on Kashyyyk and freeing many Wookiee slaves, Sidious received a transmission and was alerted to the situation.
"4 Jedi, send me the footage from the compound."
As Sidious glanced at his datapad, he felt a rage boil within. It was Anakin and his cunning Master Kenobi, alongside 2 Jedi that Sidious did not recognize. No matter, he thought, this would be too much for his apprentice. Instead, they would need to deal with this matter as one. Anakin and Leia were patrolling the landing bays, while Obi-Wan and Luke searched for more of the enslaved. Just as Anakin almost gave up hope, he felt cold and gazed up at the skies, just in time to see a Star Destroyer arriving above the planet. "It's time," Anakin whispered into his comlink. "He's here." As a lone shuttle shot out of the Imperial cruiser and softly landed on one of the empty bays, Obi-Wan arrived with Leia. The group of Jedi Knights and Masters stood in a line together, bravely facing their foe. The shuttle's doors slid open as its boarding ramp ejected slowly. Multiple pairs of footsteps could be heard, and 2 hooded dark figures approached. As they paused, lowering their hoods, they were followed by 2 guards, wearing crimson robes and wielding thin staves. The chessboard had been set, and all its pieces arranged. As the 2 red men stepped forward, they readied their weapons. "We'll take them," Luke said, as boldly and confidently as he could. He and Leia marched aside and engaged the robed warriors. This left Anakin and Obi-Wan with Palpatine and the Sith apprentice that stood behind him. A familiar voice barked from their helmet.
"It's good to see you haven't changed. Still the rat you always have been, Kenobi."
It was Maul. Darth Maul. The one man that had haunted his entire adult life. Obi-Wan was stunned. After everything he had been through, this man, fueled by his pure and unfiltered rage, stood strong. As he remained focused on Maul, reaching for his saber, he was thrown off-center by a barrage of Force lightning which his former Padawan had barely blocked in time. Seeing Anakin engage Sidious, Obi-Wan knew he would need to take the victory over Maul, and stepped forward to engage him. As their blades clashed, so did Luke and Leia's. Their opponents were well-trained and had the discipline of machines. The guards' weapons were crafted out of a lightsaber-resistant material, but they had a breaking point. Focusing his energy into his crystal, Luke amplified the blade and rained a powerful blow down on one of the guards. His staff snapped instantly, and Luke quickly subdued the man with the Force. With it now being 2 against 1, the second fighter was quickly defeated. Obi-Wan spun his blade in every direction, methodically blocking every strike made against him. Just as Obi-Wan began to think this was like old times and that Maul hadn't changed, he suddenly felt the weight of the Sith's attacks growing. It was then he realized how wrong he really was. Maul's new cybernetics caused him complete agony, fueling his hatred even more. And at the center of his every thought was just one man, Obi-Wan Kenobi. As Maul snarled and lunged forward, about to break Obi-Wan's defenses, he was stopped by a green blade, Luke, and behind him Leia. Obi-Wan let out a sigh of relief, certain the duo had just saved him, a trait they had inherited from their father, no doubt. Maul screamed in anger, enraged even further by Obi-Wan's apparent cowardice, but Obi-Wan had drilled with the twins countless times. He knew what he was doing. In response to him switching forms, Maul ignited the second half of his saber staff and charged forward. As Maul's blade clashed with Luke's, Anakin was in the middle of the most intense duel on the field. Palpatine had gauged the power of the Chosen One and was now making distance between them, deciding that the only contest between them would be in long-range Force attacks. As he tore up the field, Anakin focused on the safety of his family, protecting them from different blasts and bolts of intense force energy. Inevitably, he would slip, and someone would die. Palpatine was sure of it, yet, no matter what chain of powers he unleashed, Skywalker absorbed them all, effortlessly balancing his two tasks of offense and defense. Using the Force to erect a powerful barrier over the combatants below, Anakin diverted his focus to Sidious, who was amassing a huge amount of energy, creating an electric aura of black all around him. Anakin knew what he had to do. He knew what it would take for him to defeat the strongest Sith of all time. Resting on the ground below him, Anakin continued to shield his family, now extending that protection to himself. Levitating his lightsaber, Anakin placed it in front of him in the air. As he carefully undressed the weapon, he was presented with its yellow crystal. Turning his meditation to Sidious, Anakin used the crystal as a conduit for his nuclear power. As he began to rise, Sidious released his attack, sending a seemingly infinite amount of raw dark side energy toward Anakin. Lowering his shield and reinforcing that of his family, Anakin would use the crystal as a means to capture the energy, piece by piece, and use his own to override the darkness in every atom it hid. Sidious watched in awe as the strongest man to ever live absorbed his most devastating attack. He had used this only once before, to completely demolish an entire city. Yet now his failed apprentice had faced it head-on and survived without even a scratch. Sidious began to realize exactly how wide the margin was between he and Anakin. It was not a welcome surprise. Instead, Sidious knew there was a way, a risky one, but a way nonetheless. As he grew old and frail, he had long been looking into immortality, specifically by moving his consciousness into another body. He had found old writings, but nothing solid. Now, though, he realized he had nothing to lose. As he turned to see Maul losing his battle, Sidious became the man himself, morphing his legendary mind into the body of a trained assassin. The first thing he felt was pain. Unbelievable pain. Maul was stronger than he thought. As Sidious's body slumped to the floor, Anakin tried to understand what was happening. Just then, he saw that the same black aura escaped from Maul's body, and his eyes flew wide open. Shielding Luke and Leia from within the barrier, Anakin was unable to get to Obi-Wan, lest his barrier run right through him. He scrambled and screamed, but it was no use. In an instant, Obi-Wan Kenobi's corpse hit the ground, his saber tumbling from his hand. As Sidious turned in his apprentice's body, the mask's line of sight fell upon Luke and Leia. Then, as quickly as he had seen them, he could no longer do so. They were gone, vanished. The feeling was familiar to Sidious. They had been teleported away. The barrier slowly shifted and compressed until it ceased to exist. Anakin approached Sidious slowly and patiently, trying his best to stop his rage from taking over. Back at the temple on Tython, Ahsoka was shocked to see Luke and Leia, with neither of their seniors present. Fearing the worst, she asked them what happened. Their words matched what she felt through the Force. Her old friend had departed, and now her master was in danger. That fear, however, soon vanished as she felt Anakin reach out to her from across the galaxy. "It's okay, Snips. I got this." Typical Anakin, she thought, ready for anything. As she took a seat to process Obi-Wan's death, her master did so mentally. He went over the situation again and again, but he did his best not to blame himself. Obi-Wan wanted to come. He volunteered. Half the plan was his idea. "It isn't my fault." "No, it's not," Obi-Wan gently replied. "You've done well, Anakin, and I couldn't be more proud of you. My time has come, but yours has not. End this, Anakin. Bring balance to the Force." As Obi-Wan's words permeated in his mind, Anakin let go of all of his attachments, dropping what was left of his saber, cloak, and other possessions. The Chosen One calmly approached his mad and evil opponent. Sidious manifested the strongest lightning he could, but it had no effect on the young Jedi Master standing before him. Closing the gap between himself and the Sith, Anakin embraced him, absorbing every spell the Dark Lord could bring himself to cast. Just then, looking into Anakin's eyes and seeing him return the gaze, Emperor Palpatine realized he was defeated. As the pair of eyes came closer and closer, they soon became one, and Sidious was no more. He had lost his will, and that of Skywalker prevailed. Returning to his Jedi Academy, Anakin would not let Obi-Wan's legacy escape the minds of many students. Forever would stories be told of their times together, and of his master's infinite wisdom. As Anakin stood with his family, watching the beautiful sunset on Tython, he turned to his side, seeing a band of Force ghosts smiling at the sight of him. Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Yoda all stood there, proud of their new Grand Master of the Jedi Order, proud of the Chosen One.